What about these guys here? I was in Cyprus. One of the last trips I did with the ministry, I had a conference, I had the videotape in Cyprus. All the missionaries came there. And as part of that trip, I got to go to Greece, and it was the second time I've been to Greece, but this time I had a lot more free time, so I walked around Athens. You can't look anywhere without seeing a centaur, a minotaur, the toppled remains of a god or a temple, in every direction. It's everywhere. And I started to think to myself, I'm a Star Wars fan, and I'm thinking, nobody's going to remember Yoda 4,000 years from now. If all this is mythology, right? George Lucas trying to create a new mythology. If all this is the imagination of a blind poet named Homer, it doesn't make sense to me that it would still be so strong in the collective consciousness of an entire people group for this long. And I came back home with the thought in my head that I think those guys were real. Came home, told my wife about it. We had a nice discussion, went to bed. Next morning, she wakes up, checks her email, calls me, come here, you got to see this. She had on her email screen there a BBC News report that scientists had successfully cloned a sheep with a human heart. And the article went on to say, well, if we keep doing this, the obvious implication is that the genes will eventually fuse together and we're going to end up with animal-human hybrids. I'm like, thank you, Lord, confirmation. Considering we just had the conversation last night. I think those are real. And by the way, depending on your English translation, satyrs show up quite a few times in the Bible. Should make you think. Go on Bible Gateway and punch up satyr as a word search. Half goat, half man. Today, as it was in the days of Noah, right? Now, most of these pictures up here are photoshopped. They're fake. Except for this one right here, this mouse rat thing, whatever it is, with an ear growing out of its back. That's actually pretty old. That's back in the 90s when that came out. This is from a movie called Splice. I do not recommend you see it. It's a very disturbing movie. We didn't know what we were getting into when we saw it. But it talked about the implications of blending species. Very disturbing film. You have to know that people like Professor Nick Bostrom, director of the Future of Humanity Institute at Oxford, okay, he's the guy in charge of the future of humanity, at least as far as Oxford is concerned. This is scary, guys. All right. This is a chart that he's put together, and he shows this little circle down here in the bottom right-hand corner. He says that's the sensory abilities of humans, our senses, what we can see, what we can hear, what we can smell and taste, etc. And he drew another circle here. He says this larger oval here is what's accessible to animals. Bats have radar and dolphins have sonar and stuff. And so, things that humans don't have. And so he thought, well, if we start blending humans with animals, then we could increase our sensory modalities and we would have more, the ability to do more. And so he says, by transhumans, the blending of species, we could have this bigger circle right here. And he speculates that if we continue the process, we could have this really big one up here when we all become post-human. And just so you can get a sense of the gravity of this situation, I've got a little short video I put together. Listen to Hugo de Garis and Nick Bostrom and some of these guys talk about what's going on in real life right now in laboratories and what they're planning.
There's more computing capacity in a grain of sand that's been nanoteched, right? There's more computing capacity in that grain of sand than our human being brain's capacity by a factor of, billions, right? So imagine a young woman, she's just given birth, and then she needs to make the decision. Is she going to have her baby modified? Is she going to turn that baby into a cyborg, or effectively an artellect? So say she decides to do that. So this, hypothetically, this grain of sand, in a sense, that's been nanoteched, is inserted into the human brain, that baby's brain, and it integrates itself into the brain. So that baby, in effect, is no longer human. Because, think about it. The capacity of that grain of sand is billions of times what the human brain can do. Right? So for, 1/1000th of its capacity, of its time, is it doing human things. And the other 99.9999999% of the time, it's doing artellecty type things. So that woman, in a sense, has killed her baby. Killed in the sense the baby is no longer human. It's effectively an artellect. It's an artellect in human disguise.
When we start modifying our brains with technology, then it does change us from the word go. Even just feeding in one electrode with maybe an extra sense, an ultrasonic sense, which we know is quite possible, then it starts to give you abilities, and you believe you can do things outside the normal realms of humanity. So your values, your morals start to change immediately. You become a cyborg.
What I'm really interested in is to try to understand the bigger picture for humanity, our place in the world, and what might lie in store for our species in the future. Particularly the way we might use technologies to enhance ourselves, or to go beyond what we currently think of as our human nature, whether it might be by radically extending the human lifespan through solving the problem of aging, or increasing our intellectual capacities, improving our memory, or taking control of our own emotional states. I think that we are right now in a transitional phase where before the end of this century we will either have gone extinct, or we will have most likely taken the step to become what you might call transhumans or posthumans, or just very enhanced humans that have reached their full potential.
Because progress is so rapid, I mean, there's going to be more progress in the next 10 years than there were in the previous, 20 or 30, right? So the rate of progress is speeding up. It itself is accelerating. So there's going to be hugely more change, technological change in the 21st century than in the 20th. Far more. So all these weird things that sound like science fiction to most people today will probably be realities in a time, in a fewer number of decades than we had imagined.
I can't see any way that it will not happen. This is progress.
Human beings already, theorists have done the math, they've got the modelling of how to build baby universes. So if that's possible in theory, with human brains doing the thinking, what could an intellect do? Could it actually build universes? Could it actually manipulate whatever exists to create new universes? Is that possible? Now, if it can do that, then by definition, it's a god, right? It's a creator. Can you sort of sense a kind of almost like a religious awe almost? We could build gods if we wanted to.
We could build gods if we wanted to. They're talking about Moore's Law, the technology advances, doubles, every 18 months or whatever. This is coming sooner than later, guys. It's already in the works. Did you hear the promises of Lucifer there? Greater understanding, longevity, long life, immortality. We could not only be gods, but heck, let's go make gods. What do gods demand? Worship. Allegiance. Kind of frightening. I think that sheds some light on what the Master says when he says in Matthew 24, "For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." And again in Luke, "And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations and with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming upon the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken." Could he be talking about this scenario? Animal-human hybrids, cyborgs, Artilex. When he says Artilex, that's short for artificial intelligence. He basically classifies, in the very near future, going to have three classes of creatures, humanoid creatures. There'll be Terrans, you and me, normal human beings. There'll be Artilex, which will be artificial intelligence, AI, that look like humans, but they're completely computer. And then there'll be the blending of the two, which will be called cyborg. It's all feeds into the whole singularity and all that stuff that everybody's talking about these days. So, could Yeshua be talking about this in the very near future? They're already building this stuff. What about this scenario here? Mile-wide spaceships parking over cities. wasn't too long ago that you would have thought that was crazy. But mile-wide ships have been parking over cities lately. Back in 2008, not too far from where we live down in Dallas, a mile-wide ship showed up over Stevensville, Texas.
Is it a balloon, a UFO? Whatever it is, it sure has a lot of people talking. Eyewitness News reporter Jeff Begase is live in Chelsea, where crowds have gathered. Jeff, what's this all about?
Well, Sade, we don't know.
Sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair,
Look at that.
and they took them wives of all which they chose.
Oh my gosh.
There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them,
What is that?
the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown.
Oh my gosh.
Disclosure is very close, and the American people need to prepare themselves very soon for an announcement from our government that there is, in fact, extraterrestrial presence engaging this planet and the human race.